Thank you very much to the esteemed panel for taking the time to join us today. The focus is on cloud connectivity to empower teachers and students. So this is an opportunity for us to move beyond connectivity to what connectivity makes possible for teachers, for students, for ministries, for the economy. So we'll look at the infrastructure for a while, for the first, say, 10-15 minutes, but then we'll move more into looking at content and teaching and how education can be transformed through cloud. So starting with Mr. Kompi. So you invested heavily in the education system in recent years, and you have the highest spend of any country in the world, 38% of your GDP goes to education. And you have high-speed connectivity now. So how do you plan to use it to bring teachers and students online?
Thank you. I would like to give a bit of a background in this movement, but first let me allow to say it is a pleasure to be invited to Innovation Africa yet again, and to be given the opportunity to be part of the panel. I know most of us, we really don't know about Lesotho, but it's one country which is very likely to be having just one million neighbor, that is South Africa, with a population of 2 million. We have a total of 338 secondary schools and 1.4 of primary schools. And the schools are normally distributed fairly according to the terrain of the country. And since 2000, we have been providing a free primary education with the school feeding to all of the schools. And since 2010, we have also given a priority to ECCD and provide the school feeding for all of the registered ECCDs. I would want to say we are very lucky to have Vodacom Lesotho, which has recently launched a 4G LTE, which was in that area, and we have taken a bit of an opportunity to use it. They have also launched or willingly given us a connection to 150 schools, secondary schools, that is more than half of the secondary schools that we have. And we are willing to make use of it because since they launched, we are connecting the 150 schools with network and providing the infrastructure to them. That says we couldn't wait for them to launch it because we have been waiting for too long as we didn't have enough resources to do it ourselves, but since it's there, we are making use of it. And they've also promised to give us a 1-year free connection, as well as we use it on educational account. So we are taking advantage with what Vodacom did, and we are also trying to advocate for our teachers to use their own resources where we don't have computers. Because the connection will be free, and the ministry will, where the resources are for private or for personal use, that's say they give discount, but the ministry will take care of the remaining courses. That says we are really taking care of the connection that they make to us. Thank you.
Great. So Vodacom are going to be giving you free education connectivity for a year?
Oh yes, I want to say it's free because if they're giving us a connection for 1 year for free, and the discount if we are for the schools that don't have the computers, but for the teachers with using their own personal computers, they're giving us discount, and the ministry saying we will pay for the rest. It says we want to say they're giving us a free connection.
Great, thank you, Minister. And we'll return to look at your initiatives in higher education when we come back to you. Morning, Madam. So perhaps we could start with your One Laptop per Child initiative, which is very bold and very ambitious, and also has had some challenges as well. So perhaps you'd like to start by just giving an update of where that is now.
Thank you very much. I come from Kenya, and indeed we've got a population of 40 million people, and we've got lots of ICT issues that relate to successful way of handling this particular issue within Africa. We've trained about 14,000 teachers And we have also made sure that there is a power connection to about 10,000 schools, and of the schools that have not been connected to the power grid, we've ensured that there is solar power to at least 800 of them. And in this process, therefore, we are ensuring that when the laptop project takes effect, we shall be almost through with the power connection to all the schools. We did intend that by the beginning of the next financial year, which starts in July 2015, that we shall have managed to at least reach 3/4 of the schools that have not been connected to power. On connectivity, we are doing very well because there are various organizations, Google and many others, that are involved in ensuring that we have this connection. And so in the process, we find that we are doing very well. However, the challenge we at times have is the disruption of power now and again, and therefore internet becomes a problem one of the times, but not all the time. So we are trying to see that as a country, we continue moving well towards this area, so that we can, as a country, continue to develop ICT-wise with no problems.
Great, thanks for that. And can you tell us just a little bit more about your ICT master plan for 2017? What's the vision for your ICT master plan for 2017?
So ICT is very, very much integrated in the school system. ICT is very much appreciated even by the public. Mm-hmm. And when we do this, you know, there are these effects which take place because we have the ICT. When we have it coming in schools, then the parents, who are our stakeholders, also take interest. And in the process, there is that effect that there is even economic development, because very many people tend to now appreciate the fact that ICT is available.
Great, thanks, Joyce. You brought up two very important points around energy. It's not just about connectivity, it's also about the energy, but also about the participation of parents as education gets transformed. And we'll be returning to both of those. Thank you very much. Morning, Jonathan. Thank you very much for coming. So could you start by telling us a bit more about Routenet? Because Tanzania has significantly increased its connectivity, it has a very strong backbone network, and prices have come down by 90%. So you're seeing the translation of the submarine cables finally coming into the Tanzania network system over 4 years. So how are you beginning to leverage that for the education system and the online system, online teaching?
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank you very much for inviting me to this panel. I come from Tanzania. Tanzania, which, as you know, is a big country, so connectivity is an issue for us, very important. So the so-called connectivity, the lowering of costs is not by accident. It is coming because Tanzania is having a vision really to increase the access to internet and use internet for learning. So we've been investing quite a lot. The government has spent a lot of money to first of all connect all the districts. So all the districts are now connected to the national fiber optic, which is a very good step because then you have access to it. But also we are guided by concrete policy. Our vision 2025 is also guiding us that we must be a middle income economy by 2025. So which means we must have an ICT-based kind of initiative so that we can get where we want to go. So far we may not talk about 100% coverage for sure, because there are so many limitations to it. One of them is energy, as my colleague from Kenya said, we still don't have a coverage of the entire country. Around more than 40% of the country is covered by the national grid. So we also have coverage related to renewable energy, for example, solar power and others. So we are also investing on energy so that everybody is able to use. But if you look at the population of the country using mobile phones, it's also very high. Which means if you talk about connectivity here in the country, it will be very easy because now we are most of us are connected. At least everybody is having a mobile phone. A mobile phone not only for using, but sometimes it's only for beeping. You beep somebody and then somebody calls, transfer money and everything. So as a result of this high connectivity, in education, for example, now, for example, in higher education, our students can now apply for admission to universities using mobile phones.
Right.
Yes, yes. And this is happening because initially we spent a lot of time and money for students to move from one institution to another to get admission forms, fill them, and pay. So the cost has gone down from $600 to around $1,000. So they do that. This is very, very important.
So their entire application is now online.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the same also applies to application for loan.
Yeah.
Our students now are applying for loan using their mobiles. So they don't have to move around and they apply for loan. So all these developments are actually getting advantage of connectivity in the country. And we are glad that we are going in the right direction. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much indeed, Jonathan. Lucky. Good morning. So you have a vision for 2016 for primary and secondary literacy, and you have the government data network for connectivity as well. So can you just summarise after the Victoria Falls 2012 what plans you have for being able to leverage the internet and connectivity for education?
Well, thank you very much. We'd also like to thank Innovation Africa and the government of Rwanda for this opportunity to participate in Innovation Africa 2014. Indeed, there was this commitment in 2012 to connect to the government data network. The government data network is still largely dependent on existing old copper lines, so capacity is still limited in that area. However, we have a program to establish an independent education network, and there's a tender out to do that, which will be solely dedicated to educational institutions, to deliver education material for research and collaboration. In the meantime, our main telecom, which managed both the infrastructure, the national network, and the service, has been split into two companies. And we now have Botswana Fiber Networks as a company dedicated to managing the backbone, which until then was underutilized and cost was high. So with the advent of this company, we've seen a reduction in cost of bandwidth, and education has benefited. We're now seeing schools upgrading their internet bandwidth from 512 kilobits to between 1 and 10 megabits per second. But of course, there are challenges like other colleagues have indicated. We have a population of only 2 million people in a country that's close to 600,000 square kilometers. So service provision is a challenge in terms of reaching out to all the schools. Our schools, more than 1,000 schools, 90% of them are connected to the national power grid, but there are still issues relating to that.
Great, thank you very much. So very interesting the points around the creation of a structure where there's separation between the network and the service, and how that drives a fall in price. So you see that as being a significant engine in being able to bring low connectivity to students.
Yeah.
Okay.
Through the telecom regulator as well.
Yes.
We've seen costs really significantly going
yes.
down. And this has afforded both public and private educational institutions increased access,
yes.
higher capacity.
Very good. Because we went through a similar structure in the UK, Openreach being separated from British Telecom. So Openreach is the copper network, and the separation gave much greater transparency and accountability on pricing. Good morning, Nkubito. Thank you very much for joining. So, talking of connectivity, you have an extremely strong fibre backbone network with LTE on top. What are your plans now to be able to maximise it for education?
Thank you, Paul. Maybe I'll start with universities. All our universities are interlinked with fiber, both on a local network, about 10 gig per second. And we're also looking at now going international with connecting the Ubuntu. We just have the Ubuntu landed. We're setting up a research network where all universities and the research center will be able to link to the entire world. This is coming up in the next 2 to 3 months. But Rwanda has committed to the integration of technology about 4 years ago. So early on, before we got the fiber, first we had an initiative of VSAT, which actually was started by the current Minister of Education. And then in schools, what we did the offline connectivity. Every school had a wireless local area network where the laptops were talking to a server. And every time we wanted to have content, we would have our own local Google, if you will, through the server. So every time we had content that we wanted to pass on to the students, we would just upload the server and it would be the local internet. Now that we have all this fiber, currently the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of ICT are setting up a network that is going to be managed by a non-profit association. Okay. So the bandwidth that is purchased for universities can also be shared in schools, and we're also looking at how to expand that to the communities. And above the connectivity, what we're seeing is the school is now becoming a center of the community.
Great, thank you so much, Nkubito. And could you say a bit more about the Rwanda Education Commons and that initiative? I think it's very interesting around ICT and education and how building materials and sharing online.
What we've seen is completely new. Education is being transformed at another level. We now have students, 10, 11, 12-year-olds that are producing their own programs. And this is content that we are preserving on these servers. It's something that we have not anticipated. That the student from P4 will start programming, and in P6 he wants to go back and look at this program that he did in P4.
Scary, isn't it?
It's amazing. It's simply amazing. Yeah. And also, we have our president that is on Twitter, and we have now requests for students for a school to have Facebook and to have Twitter accounts, and to go on Google. They are researching the best football players, and when you ask them to do a write-up on anything they would want, they will do a search on Drogba, and they will do a write-up on him. Of course, I'm a Manchester United fan, so I don't always read Didier Drogba stories, but the important part here is we are in a new phenomenon where content is being created. But also, some of the discussions that we're having in this conference is talking to partners and see how we can have an innovation center where we can localize our curriculum, be it in terms of the specificity of the country, or be it in terms of having local startups.
Fabulous, thank you very much. And you touched on a really important point around how that transforms not just the students but also the teachers. So in this new environment, teachers need to change the way in which they teach. And it's not just about learning the skills, it's about the mindset change. And we can talk about that in a minute as well. But Minister, I wanted to bring you back in with something specific, which was the work that the National University has been doing in tele-education with Indian University and the tele-centre. So could you just briefly talk about that?
Okay, thank you. As we said earlier, Lesotho normally invests highly on education. What we normally do is we give subvention to our universities and tertiaries. And with the subvention we are given, it says most of our universities, we have only two, the public and the private one. But they are both intellectual fiber, and it says that it's available. And since then, we are saying we are bringing link with the e-learning from India, because we were aware that it's a little bit expensive for us to go out of the country to study. But most of us who are still working inside the country but don't want to study. But with the availability of the network, it says now they can be able to connect with any other university, particularly now. We have a link between Lesotho and India, and most of our students will be studying in Lesotho but doing that case in other countries, particularly India. And we are also saying, well, the sponsorship, because in Lesotho, for most students to go for tertiaries, they get the sponsorship from the government through the manpower secretariat. We also give a huge sum of money that is the book allowance. We call it the book allowance, but we know recently we are no longer buying the printed books like we used to. Then they will opt for the tablets, they will opt for the laptops or any other technology they use in classes, and then they will be able to do their own researches to maybe to look at the resources they need. And that says maybe the education level will change because they don't stick to the given books like we have. But we have also shifted a little bit as a country to say, why should we only focus on the higher education? Starting at August this year, that is 2014, the ministry has piloted the use of tablets in primary schools grade 2. We have piloted the use of tablets in primary schools because we are saying they have to have a feel of the use of technology in classes. What we would want is for each student to have a tablet, but it's not easy for the country. So we are saying they should share. Normally we give it to the ratio of grade 2 to 1 tablet, and we are believing that at some point maybe we will afford to give to all the grades because we are also introducing the new curriculum. So we are saying as we come in with the new curriculum, then they have to have a feel of using the technology classes. That one is normally financed by the government, but we also have the private sector through the Vodacom again, also helping the ministry with what we call the high school Lesotho project. They have chosen grade 4, I don't know why, but I piloted the use of technology in grade 4. They are also given the tablets, and the ratio is still 3 to 1. That says grade 2 and grade 4 since August this year, they are using, most of the schools are using the tablets, and we are hoping that we'll be able to cater for the entire classes with the assumption that we have funding and the budget will be available. This is the connection from the 4G. We are also saying even if without the connection, what else do we do to say these students they have a feel of moving from the old teaching and using the ICT classes?
That's great. Thank you so much, Liz. I mean, and it's really interesting what you're bringing out in terms of the ability to be able to learn anywhere. So if you have the connectivity, there are students in the National University of Botswana who can have experience of not virtual learning, but actual connected learning with lecturers in places like India or anywhere across the world. So it creates an entire world classroom. But we also spoke of another very interesting point, which I think I'm going to bring Isaiah on content and publishing. So Isaiah, if we can build on that, we were discussing last night the great work you've been doing in terms of government content. So science and maths, all children between 9 and 12 have the content uploaded online now. And for 6 to 9-year-olds, all content is ready to go online. And so if you can talk a bit about that, but then I'd like us to talk a bit more about content generally, because that's content in English. But of course we have this library, potentially across the world, but we need to have a library which is specific for the African continent and specific for your countries. So it'd be good to hear more about your views on that and how we can stimulate that more. But firstly, Isaiah.
Thank you very much. Under the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development Act 2013, it is been put that we should, it's given a mandate to develop quality and relevant curriculum to support materials including digital content for use in teaching and learning. And this is all the time impressed upon the KICD so that teachers and students can keep getting this kind of information in terms of content so that they only do what is relevant to what the government would like to be done. And for where vetting of what should be passed on to the students has not been done, nothing goes on unless this has been vetted and authorized correctly by the KICD. Because it has been given the mandate to carry this out.
Right, so you've got common curriculum, common standards.
Yes.
Yeah.
And all the time as such. They have also developed an online induction program for teachers so that they everything they do in terms of online is all the time put in good perspective, so that even when one is quite a long distance, they all get this kind of information with ease because of the connectivity in terms of the internet.
Yes, very good. Thanks a lot. And Jonathan, just building on that. So in the Tanzania case, could you say a bit more about the content that you're planning to put online, how you're looking to transform education in terms of from the content perspective and the impact that could have on students?
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to join you by agreeing that we really have to have materials which are authorized, guided properly, because once you open up for the crowd and everything, children, young parents will always find every information they want.
Yes.
And then there's this challenge of balancing now what is right for curriculum and what is wrong for children, especially children. Yes. And in Tanzania, we're encouraging parents to guide their children, because if you have a mobile phone, you have a smartphone at home, somebody can access any information they want, and that would be very destructive if it's not well guided. So for Tanzania, we have also regulatory authorities governing materials, basic education, technical education, and higher education. And for higher education, it's even worse because the university students are versatile. They can always access anything they want. Sometimes they download information and then they don't even come to class. Yes, because they know that this is what is going to be covered next time. So we are trying to guide not only through Senate, through Tanzania Commission for University, but really the issue here is to make sure that the right materials goes to the students, and what is not needed is also guided away from students.
Very good. And how do you cope with the challenge? If you have students who are, sometimes some of the best students, who are not coming to lectures, how are you looking to change the education system with the crowd to be able to suit their learning?
Yeah, I think the best way to do it is to make sure that learning is interactive.
Right.
Yeah, that a lecturer is no longer somebody who has all the information.
Yes.
But making role play, student-centered kind of learning. And that would be the only way that we guide students. Because otherwise, I remember one time I was attending one workshop, and one guy said the biggest threat to universities in this world will be Google. Right. Because Google is having everything. So
they say that a lot of things.
Exactly. So really interactive learning, but also putting learning into the context. Because, for example, in Africa, we need to contextualize learning in African context. So all this interactive kind of learning will be very important. Yeah? That's the only way we can guide our students appropriately to learn what we need them to learn.
Fabulous. Thanks so much. And Lucky, could you talk a bit more about Botswana University and what you've been doing at the university level, but also perhaps build a bit more on the content side? So how will you be able to shape the content that's fit for purpose, not just for universities, but also for primary and secondary schools?
Yes, thank you very much. At the university level, generally, particularly with public universities, they have put in place systems for online registration, online program placement, e-learning, learning management systems to provide as platforms for learning programs. So often course content is uploaded by staff to engage the students, but also the university libraries in particular subscribe to a number of text providers, e-text providers, to give access to online journals, to provide access to directives for free open access journals. There's also an initiative of consortia locally and in the region, to make access to online resources less costly. So that is another initiative at the higher education level. There's access to online databases and things like that. The research outputs often also uploaded to enable access to publications. At the secondary level, or at the school level, our Department of Curriculum Development in the Ministry of Education has taken up the area of e-content. And with the advent of our e-government initiative, there's a dedicated intersectoral committee that is looking at how best we can utilize those resources for education.
Right, thanks very much. So, tell us a bit more about where you're going to go from here in terms of education. Also, if you could think around the content side of things, what content you now think you need to be able to build into your curriculum, and how you're going to be able to tailor the content to be fit for purpose for your schools and universities.
Content is a major component, more than the devices, I think, where we need to put a focus on. Because it's not just digitalizing the books, it's more changing the way we learn. The students are ready for interactivity, they're ready for, they want to play, they want to make it interesting, they want it to be innovative, they don't want to memorize, they'd rather understand and create. So really when Rwanda decided to move from an agricultural economy to a knowledge-based economy, I'm sure we did not fully understand how that transformation was going to go, because a lot of these technologies are new. But certainly the country decided that technology was going to be one of the drivers, which was the right decision, because today we're seeing that the way you were teaching maths with a blackboard and the teacher writing and all the students copying, not always understanding, has completely changed. Now you have virtual games where the student can now understand the concept by just adding 2 apples or 2 oranges and seeing the result.
And we were talking yesterday about the Khan Academy, for example, which has this extraordinary grid. So you can have a subject up the top, like trigonometry or fractions or something like that, and then you have the class list on the left-hand side. And then you have a colour coding for each subject that they're studying per student. And it's blank if they haven't started, and it moves through the colours to a dark blue if they've mastered it. And by the time they get to a dark blue, the teacher is able to assess as they go through these grades how well they're doing. And if it's a red, they need help. And so the teacher is able to have the transparency to see how every single student is coping with a particular subject.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the teacher is becoming more human. Before, the teacher was a robot repeating over and over in class, while with the color coding, he can focus on a certain student, on a certain specific challenge that the student is having. And coming back still on the content, but the libraries, what we're looking at doing in the Ministry of Education is taking the entire US Congress allowed digital material and put it here in Rwanda and share it with all the universities and all the high schools. And indeed, there's challenges of ensuring where the students shouldn't go, but more importantly, we should let the students go everywhere they want, but ensure that they still follow the right path for education. What is it that we feel that at this level should know?
Yes.
But I think creativity became so exponential with connectivity that we should transform all these schools into libraries. If I could just talk 2 minutes about the history of Rwanda, we started off without the library. Our first public library was probably 3 or 4 years old maximum, and in Kigali. And we have 3,000 schools. So with the digital world and the connectivity, we can have 3,000 libraries instantaneously.
That's quite something. Thank you. And so, how are teachers, because there's a lot of discussion, there's been a lot of investment from all the countries on teaching teachers how to use ICT. So big initiatives with 10,000, 15,000 teachers. But there's also a mindset change that needs to happen. So teachers themselves need to change the way they think in the same way students are quick to see the internet and the library. So how do you use connectivity in the cloud and train teachers to evolve to become facilitators? And I'll throw that question over to John, I'll start with you.
Thank you very much. That's a very good question, and I think it's important because we have to start from the teacher. The teacher must be able to manage the environment before delivering to students. What is happening in Tanzania is that we are now having a program which is aiming first of all to build capacity of teachers to use ICT, but also teachers to be able to teach using ICT. So this is where what we're doing now. And the reason why we're doing so is because we realize that we cannot just go ICT without training the person who is responsible. And most of these teachers are old teachers, most of them. They were trained in a different system. So they have to be actually brought into the system. And in some cases we find that students are much more ahead of teachers, especially in universities. So we need to retool teachers. We have a program running now on this part of the roadmap. We are retooling teachers in difficult topics in science and mathematics. So we are talking about chemistry, physics, biology, and mathematics. So there's a panel of expert teachers who identify difficult topics in science. Then we digitize those difficult topics.
Great.
Invite teachers randomly, train them on difficult subjects, and then be able to allow them to go out and train other teachers. So the system is going to be a kind of spiral kind of arrangement in which capacity building from a small group and then it goes up to bigger numbers. And we think that if we do so, and we put those digitized materials into e-learning materials, then people will be able to learn and interact, especially teachers will be able to actually using their mobile phone to access some of the difficult topics and be able to learn, but also interacting with the center because we have training centers across the country where such materials are kept. So teachers may access also the centers and learn more. And we expect that through that the country will be covered quickly by building capacity of teachers, but also now students will be able to access such difficult topics.
That's excellent. And just to a word on cloud connectivity in terms of teacher monitoring, so monitoring performance, monitoring assessment, not just of the students but also the teachers, and using technology for the inspectors that inspect the teachers. Any thoughts from around the panel on how that can be used in a powerful way in this new world?
Maybe I can say something. With the sustained growth in connectivity to a majority of regions now in Africa and the other parts of the world, there is growing interest in disseminating content from centralized platforms. And this could be offline or online remote. In Kenya, we have, as a ministry, already developed 2 platforms. One is the Elimu platform, and the other one is the Elimika platform. So these are 2 platforms from which teachers and learners can all the time benefit from. I'm saying this so that we could exchange this kind of experience, and in the process develop as a continent.
Very good. And is that content going to be in English? What subjects or what languages are you going to plan?
At the moment, it's still in English,
yep.
But we could also translate it into Kiswahili.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you.
Very good. And any other minister, any thoughts you have around technology and how it can be used to support the ministry itself in its workings? So for the Ministry of Education to be able to use it to support your policy documents, your curriculum, and also to ensure that there's transparency and accountability in performance for teachers, for schools, as well as for students.
What we do as a ministry, we are given the utility grants to different schools. With the utility grant, what we are hoping they use it for is to maintain the facilities, the ICT facilities. We are also training teachers on how to use ICT in classes. We have selected a few, but hoping that we make them train of trainers, because we couldn't maybe put them all together at the same time. But with the information, they have a normal hold workshop for them to say, this is going to be sustainable. We are still having a challenge here and there because the electricity is not connected the entire country. We are using solar for the schools wherever we don't have electric power. Though at times we find solar to be a bit of expensive, as in the capital project, because you have to install it once and there's not that much though it's a bit sustainable because our country, maybe we have 300 days, Sundays. So it's a solar to us, it's really good, but we are finding it expensive and we not really afford to use it. We are also worried about the content or the website that our students will go to, but we are in a negotiation position between Ministry of Education and Ministry of Communications and ICT and Vodacom, because it's the one that launched the 4G, is the one that has been helping the ministry to give the ICT to get into schools. We are negotiating with it to say which connection should go to schools, because that's the easier way for us to control some of the information that our students can access. Because we were aware that we cannot really tell if they are using the ICT particularly for their studies. But with the control of the network, it says maybe a bit trying to channel them off which website they need to use, and then we also maybe hold workshop for the conferences for some students to know the importance of using ICT. We are aware that they normally, or they are interested in social networking than using it for their educational.
Well, that's a very interesting point, Melissa, because of course we are against any kind of censorship, of course, and directing in terms of the web content, but it does bring up the issue of if you have the web available for students, how are they going to use it? And, you know, we were talking yesterday about parents and the role of parents, so perhaps you'd like to talk a little bit about your views on the content that students choose to use and the role of parents in the whole process.
Sure, Paul. I think we're going through a transformation that is simply amazing. Yesterday, parents did not really worry about where the kids were. They were just worried, don't go too far from the house to play. And now they're realizing that the entire world is put in the hands of their kids. So they have to rethink of the policy of access to the internet. How many hours, where to go, where not to go, and still remembering that we're in a totally different world from the one that we grew up in. So the parents really have to be part of this digital world, and their role is changing. They have to guide the student, but they still have to ensure that their student is innovative because it's a competitive world out there. So it's very interesting to see, especially in Africa, I think these issues were tackled a couple of years back in the US, still not completely solved, or in Europe. But now in Africa, parents are realizing that on the mobile phones, the kids are going to sites where they would not go because they do not have time, or they just do not have the ability to go there. So it's very interesting to see how the entire society is being changed by connectivity in schools, by ICT in schools, and parents now have to rethink their policies, their family policies on access to digital content.
Excellent, and lucky on that point, there's an opportunity for parents to get a far greater degree of transparency than they've ever had before on the, which is probably not such good news for the students, but it's good news for the parents, but also not just at the individual level, but also the school level, the district level. How do you see that transparency using connectivity in the cloud and data and smart use of data to be able to transform performance?
Thank you. The advent of cloud is still a new initiative in Botswana. In fact, we have our postal company recently launched in the own land, but it's still hosted by a partner in South Africa. So there's still issues, concerns about the security and so on. But there's a lot of investment in infrastructure for dedicated data centers and so on. I'd like to agree that online resources can widen learning experience. And to come back to the question of teachers, they are very critical to this process. The parents, on the other hand, tend to rely really on the teacher, on the schools for guidance.
Yes.
Of course, it really depends on the level of understanding as well. You find that, in fact, the students are the ones that provide the information to parents.
Yes. So the world has changed completely. Exactly. Not always a reliable source.
Yes. So Indeed, you know, at the school level, at the district level, there are ongoing initiatives to give students an experience.
Yes.
But teachers, like in other countries, as shared here, the majority are still very traditional.
Yes.
In their delivery. We have a program with the private sector, and it's entirely voluntary, which we call Adopt a School. And through this program, the most popular assistance or partnership is that of providing ICT facilities in the schools. Many companies are providing devices, dedicated networks in some classrooms to give the teachers, the students, an experience to put some innovation in teaching and learning.
Great. And so, if I could just ask then, given that in the Adopt School, with you, Joyce, with the assistant needs, we were talking about this yesterday as well, how can you potentially use it for special needs groups, and particularly for inclusive education? So the idea of inclusive education and the role of connectivity and the internet and data and remote learning and virtual libraries to be able to create inclusive education for the many millions in Tanzania formerly who are not in education at the moment. So, and for those people who, for one reason or another, cannot get to school, and for those who have learning challenges.
Yeah, I think this is very important. As we talk of inclusive education, we are talking of special approaches to education, and therefore special ICT-based equipment, which for me is one another very important challenge. So in Tanzania, inclusive education, yes, we are having classes of such individuals with difficulties in learning. We facilitate them, especially those who cannot see, for example, or those who cannot hear, with facilities. But I see that we've not done enough yet, especially when we talk of ICT now, because ICT is different. So we really have to embark on understanding exactly what is needed for such people, and therefore be able to provide education in such a way that is efficient and informative, given their challenge. And much as with that vision, we still have some way to go. And I can't say that we've done enough. We still have to work very hard. One other thing is because the government is ready. Yeah, because you need to start from there. The government must be ready, anywhere ready. So we are putting them out of homes and we bring them to school, which is important. And once we bring them all to school, because there's some who are hidden somewhere, the same as happens in other countries. So we want to get them out of homes and come to schools, and then be able to now manage them while they're there with special equipment and special facilities. And
that's really interesting in Tanzania case, because you have two schools, I understand, which are specific for people with learning difficulties and challenges, but you also have a commitment to have as many of those students integrated into your normal Tanzania system. And so the challenge will be that for that to be successful, you need to be able to have the connectivity and resources to be able to really include them.
Yeah, exactly. That's the challenge.
Yes, that's okay.
I don't know what he's saying. my Tanzanian colleague. Excuse me. Even when you have information, if you only keep it with yourself, then we would not have done much. In Kenya, we have dedicated a TV channel which releases the contents to all the schools sector or the education sector in the country. It is both the TV and the radio channels, so that whatever comes up as a new development is passed on to the pupils, and they know the exact time that they expect to look at the TV channels. And for those who do not have the TVs, they can access this through radio.
Wow. Who makes the content for the TV channel?
Sorry?
Who makes the content?
The content is made by the KIC, the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development.
Great.
Yes, and they have a dedicated channel for them only, which they ensure everything is channeled to the students and teachers.
Very, very good. That's great to teach. So, Minister, anything you'd like to add?
I would say when we talk about inclusive education, what we have done recently, though we still feel is not good enough, for the tablets that we are giving out on schools, we have included those people who are visually impaired, because they can talk, and the minister is the one taking care of the content. It says the visually impaired can also access the curriculum that the same students are having. And we also have the school for the visually impaired. We have got the software that is helping them at least to. It's the school for the visually impaired for all people, those who have maybe been exposed with the visually impaired at the older stage. We have tried to buy, as a ministry, to buy the software that will have the visually impaired to be online with those who we feel we are not that much disabled, though we are. So we are trying to have that inclusive education, but other factors of those people living with disability are not really that much addressed for now. That says it's still a challenge to the country of how do we address people living with disabilities, especially when we come to education. And the fact that there are different schools, and not all schools are having the use of ICT classes.
Yes.
And that says they are still left out for now to say we are dealing with people living with disabilities.
Yes. But the potential is there for the technology to really transform those lives, and for the experience of education to be equal, regardless of your background or circumstances. Further thoughts?
Just quickly on the special needs, the kids with special needs. We have 2 schools here with deaf and mute kids, and when we introduced laptops there, we were not sure of the outputs, but we wanted to ensure that they are also part of the transformation in education. And what we've noted is now students were able to chat with each other. And as soon as we brought connectivity and started chatting with our peers from the other school, which is in the south, but also with other kids around the world. And because they're not disturbed by external noise, these kids tend to be better programmers.
Yes.
They are better focused.
Yes.
And they're quick at solving problems. So when you have, there's several extension of being deaf, and some of them are they can't hear at all, and even with tools. So they are able to program much better. So this is opening a windows where they would not graduate into a normal path, but they will be top programmers that we hope tomorrow you'll be hiring.
That's very inspiring. That's one. So people who are deaf, they're actually being fast-tracked.
Yes.
To really specialise and that's a tremendous.
Because they're able to shut down the entire world around them and just focus on programming and writing.
It's absolutely wonderful. It really is. Lovely.
Our policy on inclusive education goes beyond just those with disabilities, to even those who are in certain special circumstances, perhaps what we refer to as remote area dwellers. And so we have deliberate programs to reach out to these. Our e-content, which includes radio, television, is fairly heavily utilized in promoting our inclusive education initiatives.
Yes. Excellent. Thank you, Rosalie. I think we've been asked to draw it all to a close. So I'd like to thank you all very much for discussing. There are lots of things we didn't have enough time to go into more detail with, like how do you create content locally. But it seems to cover lots of ground, and I really appreciate all your thoughts. Thank you very much.
June 28, 2013.
Dear Khan Academy,
I am 72 years old, and I am now taking up learning where I left off.
Thank you so much for all your hard work.
Your team is doing nothing less than changing the world. Thank you. I always knew I wanted to be a part of educational technology, and Khan Academy is this chance to impact people's lives in a meaningful way and at scale.
Khan Academy's mission is a free world-class education for anyone, anywhere, and we're really focused on learner outcomes. Google Cloud Platform allows us to stay focused on those learner outcomes because our infrastructure has become this invisible layer that we don't have to worry about anymore.
Google Cloud Platform is a pretty neat suite of tools that you can use to get your service running from supporting one user who's visiting per day to like hundreds of thousands and millions of users per month.
We've had certain very large press events, that have driven a lot of traffic quite quickly to our site, and we have the support of Google. We're not going to be diving in and restarting a bunch of servers. It's a comforting thing. As a developer on Cloud Platform, you kind of have a number of dashboards built in that are really helpful. I mean, we can look at things, we can edit things.
One of our core philosophies is shipping beats perfection.
We ship every day, and the transitions when we ship a new version should be seamless for new users. Google's put a lot of effort into making sure that the switch from the old version to the new version is well handled. When we go run an experiment and make a small change to our site, we can increase learning for millions of students, and that's you get these letters and you get these individual letters, and that tells a big story, and then you think about the bigger picture of how many people are experiencing some of these changes, and that's a hard experience to beat in terms of one's impact on the world.